The morning before the storm. Elena's hands worked the dough with practiced ease. The morning sun filled her small bakery with golden light. Flour dusted her simple brown dress as she shaped another loaf of bread. Her father had taught her every secret of baking before he passed away. Now, at 22 years old, she ran the bakery alone. "These smell wonderful," said old Mrs. Harmon, her first customer of the day. "You have your father's gift, child." Elena smiled warmly. "Thank you. He always said good bread requires patience and love." As she wrapped the fresh loaves, her thoughts drifted to the letter tucked in her apron pocket. Tonight was the Duke's grand ball. And tonight, she would see Lucas again after 5 long years. ## memories of friendship. Lucas had been her best friend since childhood. They played together in the village square. He taught her to climb trees. She shared her sweet pastries with him. Back then, it didn't matter that his father was a wealthy merchant while hers was a simple baker. "When I grow up, I'll make sure we're never apart," young Lucas had promised under their favorite oak tree. "You'll always be important to me, Elena. Always." Those words had sustained her through the years after his father's business succeeded beyond imagination. When Lucas was sent to the capital for education. When his family received a noble title. When the letters stopped coming. But last week a letter finally arrived. Lucas was returning for the Duke's ball. He wanted to see her. Her heart had soared with hope. ## preparing for the ball. Elena closed the bakery early. She climbed the narrow stairs to her small room above the shop. There, carefully wrapped in cloth, hung her mother's dress. It was simple but beautiful. Pale blue silk with delicate embroidery her mother had sewn by hand. She bathed carefully and braided her long dark hair with white ribbons. The dress fit perfectly. Looking in the cracked mirror, Elena barely recognized herself. For once she didn't look like a baker covered in flour. She looked like someone who might belong at a noble's ball. "Papa, Mama," she whispered to their memory. "Wish me luck tonight." The walk to the Duke's mansion took an hour. Her worn shoes weren't made for long walks, but excitement carried her forward. Other villagers stared as she passed. Some whispered. A baker's daughter didn't usually attend such grand events. ## entering a different world. The Duke's mansion blazed with candlelight. Music floated through open windows. Carriages lined the circular drive, each more elegant than the last. Elena's courage wavered as she approached the entrance. "Invitation?" asked a stern servant at the door. She showed Lucas's letter. The servant's eyebrows rose, but he stepped aside. Elena entered a world of silk and jewels. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Ladies in magnificent gowns danced with gentlemen in fine coats. The air smelled of expensive perfume and wine. Elena felt suddenly small and out of place. Her mother's dress, so beautiful in her small room, looked plain and old-fashioned here. Her hands, rough from kneading dough, couldn't hide their calluses. ## the first glance. Then she saw him. Lucas stood near the refreshment table, impossibly handsome in black and silver. He'd grown taller, broader. His face had lost its boyish softness, but his eyes were the same warm brown she remembered. Her heart pounded as she moved toward him. 5 years of loneliness, of wondering, of hoping. It all came down to this moment. "Lucas," she said softly, stopping a few feet away. He turned. For a brief second, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? But then his expression went cold and blank. "I'm sorry," he said in a voice that cut like ice. "Do I know you?" Elena's smile froze. "It's me. Elena. From the village. We grew up together. You sent me a letter." "I think you're mistaken," Lucas interrupted, his tone sharp. "I don't associate with." His eyes swept over her simple dress dismissively. "Common villagers." ## the cruel laughter. A beautiful woman in a red silk gown appeared at Lucas's side. Her golden hair was piled high, decorated with rubies. Her smile was sharp and cruel. "Who is this?" the woman asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "No one, Lady Victoria," Lucas said quickly. "Just someone confused." Lady Victoria's eyes narrowed as she studied Elena. "Oh, I see. One of those girls who think a childhood acquaintance means something. How pathetic." She raised her voice, drawing attention from nearby nobles. Everyone, look. This little baker girl thinks she belongs here because she once played in the dirt with Lord Lucas as children. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Cruel, mocking laughter that turned Elena's cheeks red with shame. Nobles moved closer, enjoying the entertainment. How did you even get in? Lady Victoria continued. Did you sneak past the servants? Or perhaps you delivered bread to the kitchen and got lost? More laughter. Elena's throat tightened. She looked at Lucas, silently begging him to say something, to remember their friendship, to show one shred of the kindness he'd once possessed. But Lucas just looked away, his jaw tight. Hashtag the public humiliation. I have an invitation, Elena managed to say, her voice barely audible. She pulled out Lucas's letter with trembling hands. Lady Victoria snatched it away. Her eyes gleamed with malice as she read it aloud to the gathering crowd. Dear Elena, I hope this letter finds you well. I will be attending the Duke's ball and would enjoy seeing you again after all these years. How touching. She tore the letter in half. What Lord Lucas meant was that he hoped you'd bake some of your peasant bread for the servants' table. Not that you should actually attend as a guest. The crowd roared with laughter. Some nobles pointed at Elena's worn shoes. Others whispered behind their fans about her rough hands and simple dress. Look at her hair ribbons, one lady sneered. Are those made from kitchen twine? And that dress, another added. My grandmother wouldn't be caught dead in something so outdated. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these cruel people. Not in front of Lucas, who still wouldn't meet her gaze. Hashtag the final blow. Lord Lucas, Lady Victoria said sweetly, linking her arm through his. Tell this poor, confused girl the truth. Tell her that someone of your status could never truly be friends with a baker's daughter. That any kindness you showed her as a child was merely pity. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Elena looked at Lucas one last time. Please, her eyes begged. Please remember who we were. Lucas finally met her gaze. For just a moment, pain flashed across his face. But then Lady Victoria squeezed his arm, and his expression hardened. She's right, he said clearly. I was young and didn't understand proper social boundaries. Any friendship we had was a childhood mistake. I apologize for any confusion my letter may have caused. I meant only to inform you of my return to the village, nothing more. Each word was a knife to Elena's heart. The boy who'd promised they'd never be apart had just declared their entire friendship a mistake. Now, Lucas continued, his voice growing colder, I must ask you to leave. This ball is for invited guests only. And despite that letter, you were never truly invited. Not as an equal. Hashtag the walk of shame. Two large servants appeared at Elena's sides. They didn't touch her, but their presence was clear. Leave or be removed. Elena lifted her chin high. She would not cry. She would not beg. She would not give these cruel people that satisfaction. Thank you for clarifying your position, Lord Lucas, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the breaking of her heart. I won't make the mistake of confusing childhood kindness for genuine friendship again. She turned and walked toward the door. The crowd parted, their whispers following her like stinging insects. As she passed, one noble deliberately stuck out his foot. Elena stumbled but caught herself. More laughter erupted. At the door she paused and looked back one final time. Lucas stood frozen, his face pale, watching her leave. Lady Victoria whispered something in his ear, and he turned away. Elena stepped out into the night. The door closed behind her with a final, condemning thud. Hashtag the long walk home. The walk back to her bakery felt endless. Elena's feet ached. Her heart ached worse. She'd been so foolish. So naive to think that nobility would remember a baker's daughter. That childhood promises meant anything in a world divided by wealth and status. Tears finally came as she walked through the dark streets. She let them fall silently, washing away the last traces of her childish hopes. By the time she reached her bakery, she felt empty. Hollow. She climbed the stairs to her room and removed her mother's dress with shaking hands. In the mirror she looked the same. But inside something had broken. Or perhaps something had awakened. Hashtag the vow. Elena sat at her small table as dawn approached. She hadn't slept. She'd spent the night thinking, planning, understanding. The world she'd been born into would never accept her. No matter how kind she was. No matter how hard she worked. No matter what promises people made. Her birth decided her worth in their eyes. But what if she could change that? What if she could become someone they couldn't ignore? Someone who made them regret their cruelty? Elena pulled out a piece of paper and began writing. Not a letter of anger or revenge, but a plan. A careful, patient plan to transform herself into someone remarkable. They want me to stay in my place? She whispered to the empty room. Then I'll create a new place. One where I stand above them all. She would need help, resources, knowledge. But most of all, she would need to become someone completely different. Someone who understood their world better than they did themselves. As the sun rose over her small bakery, Elena made a vow. One day she would return to that world of silk and jewels. But next time, she would walk in not as a baker's daughter begging for acceptance. She would walk in as their equal. Or better yet, as their superior. And Lucas would see exactly what he'd thrown away. ## an unexpected visitor. 3 days passed. Elena worked mechanically, baking bread, serving customers, planning her transformation. But she had no idea where to start. She had skills but no connections. Talent but no resources. Then on a quiet afternoon, a man entered her bakery. He was perhaps 40 years old, dressed in fine but understated clothes. His eyes were kind but sharp, missing nothing. "I'd like to purchase 6 of your honey cakes," he said. "I've heard they're exceptional." Elena wrapped them carefully. "That will be 6 silver pieces, sir." The man paid, then paused. "I was at the Duke's ball 3 nights ago. I saw what happened to you." Elena's hands stilled. Heat flooded her cheeks with remembered shame. "I'm not here to mock you," the man continued gently. "Quite the opposite. I'm here because I saw something remarkable in that horrible moment. You held your head high. You showed dignity when they showed cruelty. That takes strength. What do you want?" Elena asked, her voice guarded. The man smiled. "My name is Adrian Blackwood. I'm a merchant, though I deal in more than just goods. I deal in opportunities. And I believe I have one that might interest you. ## the offer." Adrian gestured to a small table in the corner. "May we sit? I have a proposition that could change your life." Elena hesitated, then nodded. She joined him at the table, her heart pounding with cautious hope. "I own trading businesses across the kingdom," Adrian explained. "I'm opening a new venture in the capital city. An elegant shop selling baked goods to wealthy clients. But not just any baker. I need someone with real talent. Someone hungry for more than their small village can offer." "Why me?" Elena asked. "Because you can bake beautifully, clearly. But more than that, because you've been broken by their world and survived. Those who've suffered often work harder than those who've never known struggle. They have something to prove." Adrian leaned forward. "Come to the capital. Work for me. Learn not just baking but business. How to speak, dress, and move in high society. How to turn talent into power. In exchange, you'll receive a generous salary and the chance to become more than a village baker." "And what do you get?" Elena asked suspiciously. "A talented baker who will make my shop successful. And perhaps someday, someone who remembers that I gave her a chance when no one else would." Elena looked at this stranger offering her everything she just vowed to achieve. Seemed too perfect. Too easy. "I need time to think," she said. "Of course. Take 3 days. Then give me your answer." Adrian stood and handed her an elegant card with an address in the capital. "But let me tell you something, Miss Elena. The best revenge isn't anger or cruelty. It's success. It's becoming so remarkable that those who mock you can't help but see you everywhere they look. It's making them regret their blindness." After he left, Elena stared at the card for hours. This was her chance. Her one opportunity to stop being invisible. To transform from someone who could be mocked and dismissed into someone who commanded respect. 3 days later, with a small bag of belongings in her father's favorite mixing bowl, Elena closed her bakery door for the last time. She didn't know if she'd ever return to this village. But she knew she couldn't stay. As the coach carried her toward the capital in her new life, Elena looked back once at the village that had been her entire world. Somewhere in those buildings, Lucas was probably living his life, never thinking about the girl he'd betrayed. "Goodbye," she whispered. "The next time you see me, you won't recognize what I've become." The coach rolled forward, carrying Elena away from her old life and toward a future she would create with her own hands. A future where she would rise higher than anyone who'd mocked her could imagine. The broken baker's daughter was gone. Someone new was being born. Part 2. The Rise from Ashes, 2,000 words. Arriving in the capital. The capital city was everything Elena's village was not. Tall buildings lined wide streets. Elegant shops displayed goods she'd never imagined. People in fine clothes moved with confident purpose. The noise was overwhelming. Horses, carriages, street vendors, musicians. Life pulsed through every corner. Adrian's coach stopped before a beautiful building with large windows. Gold letters announced the Golden Crumb Fine Pastries. But inside the shop was empty. No furniture, no ovens, no customers. "This is your blank canvas," Adrian said as they entered. "You'll design everything. The look, the menu, the atmosphere. I provide resources. You provide vision." Elena walked through the empty space, her mind already racing with possibilities. Large ovens along the back wall. Display cases here. Small tables by the windows where wealthy ladies could sit and gossip over tea and cakes. "I'll need the finest ingredients," she said. "And I'll need to learn about the customers. What they want. What impresses them." "Good," Adrian smiled. "You're already thinking like a businesswoman. We'll start tomorrow." The hidden teacher. Adrian's house was even more impressive than his shop. Marble floors, expensive paintings, servants moving silently through hallways. Elena's small room was larger than her entire apartment above the bakery. That evening, Adrian invited her to dinner. The dining room sparkled with crystal and silver. Elena felt awkward using the multiple forks and spoons laid before her. "Don't worry," Adrian said kindly. "You'll learn. Watch me." Over the next weeks, a pattern emerged. Each morning, Elena worked in the shop, developing recipes and learning to manage supplies and costs. Each afternoon, Adrian taught her things that had nothing to do with baking. How to walk gracefully. How to speak clearly and confidently. How to dress like someone who belonged in high society. How to recognize quality in clothes, jewels, and art. How to discuss current events, music, and literature. "Why are you teaching me all this?" Elena asked one evening. Adrian's expression grew distant. "Because I once knew someone who was brilliant and kind but was dismissed because of her birth. She deserved better. You deserve better. Consider it repayment for an old debt." Creating something beautiful. 6 months passed. The Golden Crumb opened to immediate success. Elena's pastries were works of art. Delicate cream puffs that melted on the tongue. Cakes decorated with spun sugar that looked like lace. Bread so perfect it could have been painted. But Elena did more than just bake. She created an experience. The shop was elegant but welcoming. She trained her staff to treat every customer with respect, whether they spent 1 coin or 20. She remembered names and preferences. Wealthy ladies began meeting at her shop for afternoon tea. Nobles sent servants to purchase her famous chocolate torts. Even the Duke's household became regular customers. "You've become the most popular bakery in the capital in just 6 months," Adrian said proudly. "I knew you had talent, but this exceeds even my expectations." Elena smiled, but inside she felt something else growing. Not just pride but power. These wealthy people who came to her shop, praised her work, paid premium prices for her creations. They had no idea she'd once been a girl they would have mocked. The transformation. 1 year after arriving in the capital, Elena barely recognized herself. The simple baker's daughter was gone. In her place stood a poised businesswoman. Her hands were still strong from kneading dough, but now she wore elegant gloves in public. Her clothes were fashionable and well-made. She'd learned to style her hair in sophisticated ways. Most importantly, she'd learned to carry herself with quiet confidence. "You're ready," Adrian announced one evening. "Ready for what?" "To expand. I'm purchasing a second location in the merchant district. You'll oversee both shops. And," He paused dramatically. I'm making you a full partner. 50% ownership. Elena stared at him in shock. Adrian, I can't accept that. It's too much. It's not a gift. It's earned. You've tripled my investment in 1 year. Besides, his expression softened, I won't be here forever. When I'm gone, someone should continue what you've built. There was something sad in his voice. Something Elena didn't understand but didn't press. Instead, she accepted his generosity with gratitude and renewed determination. ## the mystery deepens. As Elena's business grew, so did her curiosity about Adrian. He was wealthy beyond measure, yet he lived simply. He knew everyone important in the capital, yet kept to himself. He was clearly educated and refined, yet he never attended social events. Adrian, she asked one evening, who are you really? He smiled mysteriously. I'm exactly who I appear to be. A merchant who saw potential in a talented baker. You're more than that. The way people treat you. The way guards bow. The way even nobles speak to you with respect. I'm not blind. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Perhaps one day I'll tell you the whole truth. But not yet. For now, isn't it enough that I'm your friend and partner? Elena wanted to push, but she saw something in his eyes. A deep loneliness. A need for one relationship in his life that wasn't complicated by his true identity. Yes, she said softly. That's enough. ## an unexpected encounter. 2 years after leaving her village, Elena's business had expanded to 5 locations across the capital. The Golden Crumb was now the most prestigious bakery in the kingdom. Elena herself had become someone whispered about in high society. The mysterious young woman with the incredible talent and impeccable taste. One afternoon, she was inspecting her newest shop when 2 familiar voices made her freeze. This place better be worth the wait, a woman's voice complained. I don't see why everyone's so obsessed with these overpriced pastries. Victoria, stopped complaining. The Duke recommended this place specifically. Elena's heart pounded. Lucas was here in her shop. She'd imagined this moment countless times. Dreamed of the day she'd face him again. But now that it was happening, she felt strangely calm. She turned slowly. Lucas stood at the counter with Lady Victoria, who now wore an expensive engagement ring. They both looked older, somewhat harder. Lady Victoria's beauty had turned sharp and cold. Lucas looked tired, though still handsome. May I help you? Elena asked politely, her voice steady. Lucas glanced at her briefly, then looked away. He didn't recognize her. Why would he? The girl in the worn dress and flower-covered apron was gone. In her place stood an elegant woman in a silk dress, her hair perfectly styled, her manner confident. We'd like a selection of your finest cakes, Victoria said dismissively, not even looking at Elena directly. They're for the Duke's dinner party tonight. Of course, Elena said smoothly. May I suggest our chocolate lavender torte? It's a particular favorite of the Duke's. She personally selected and wrapped their order, her hand steady. As Lucas paid, his fingers briefly touched hers. He paused, a flicker of something crossing his face. Have we met before? He asked. Elena smiled. I don't believe so, my lord. I would remember. Victoria pulled Lucas away. Come on. We're going to be late. As they left, Elena watched through the window. Victoria was speaking rapidly, gesturing with irritation. Lucas looked miserable. Their engagement, Elena realized, was not a happy one. Good. ## Adrian's truth. That evening, Elena returned to Adrian's house feeling strangely unsettled. She'd faced Lucas and felt nothing. No anger, no pain. Just a distant pity for the man who'd chosen status over friendship. You seem troubled, Adrian observed over dinner. Elena told him about the encounter. I thought I'd feel triumph. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for who he's become. Sad for the friendship we lost. Adrian set down his fork. Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you long ago. His tone made her look up sharply. My full name, he continued carefully, is Adrian Blackwood Remington. Crown Prince Adrian Blackwood Remington. Elena's wine glass slipped from her fingers, but Adrian caught it smoothly. You're the prince. Yes. I left the palace 10 years ago, disgusted by the shallow cruelty of court life. I wanted to know real people, build real relationships based on who I am, not my title. The merchant identity allowed me that freedom. Elena's mind raced. Then everything you've done for me was genuine, Adrian said firmly. You reminded me why I left the palace in the first place. To find people of real character. To build something meaningful. You've never once asked me for anything beyond what you've earned. You've never tried to use our friendship for advancement. You've simply been yourself. He reached across the table and took her hand. I care for you, Elena. Not as a prince helping a subject, but as a man who's found someone rare and precious. Someone who sees the world as it should be, not as it is. Elena looked at their joined hands. Somewhere in the past 2 years, her gratitude toward Adrian had transformed into something deeper. Affection. Trust. Perhaps even love. I care for you too, she admitted quietly. But Adrian, I'm still just a baker's daughter. Your people would never accept me. Let me worry about my people, he said with a gentle smile. For now, let's just be us. Adrian and Elena. Partners and friends. And perhaps someday something more. ## the Royal Summer Festival. 3 months later, Adrian invited Elena to attend the Royal Summer Festival as his honored guest. Not as the prince's companion, but as a successful businesswoman he was recognizing for her contributions to the capital's economy. The announcement caused a sensation. Who was this Elena Morgan? Where did she come from? How had she built such a successful business so quickly? Elena stood before her mirror the night before the festival. Her gown was magnificent. Deep green silk with silver embroidery. Her hair was arranged in an elegant style decorated with fresh flowers. Jeweled earrings, a gift from Adrian, sparkled at her ears. She looked like a princess herself. More than that, she looked like someone who belonged in that world. Not someone pretending or aspiring, but someone who had earned her place. Ready? Adrian asked, appearing at her door in his formal prince's attire. Ready, she confirmed. Tomorrow she would return to that world that had rejected her. But this time she walked in on her own terms. As Elena Morgan, successful businesswoman. As someone who had transformed pain into power. And if Lucas was there, he would see exactly what he'd lost. ## growing together. The weeks after Adrian's revelation were strange but wonderful. He continued to live as a merchant most days, but occasionally he had to attend court functions. Elena learned to navigate 2 worlds. Her bakery empire and, increasingly, the royal circles Adrian moved in. Their relationship deepened naturally. Quiet dinners became shared laughter. Business discussions became personal conversations. Mutual respect became genuine affection. Tell me about your family, Elena asked one evening as they walked through the palace gardens, disguised as a merchant and his companion. My father died 5 years ago, Adrian said. My mother is kind but weak. She lets the nobles control too much. I left partly because I couldn't watch them tear the kingdom apart with their greed and cruelty. And now I'm preparing to return. To take my place as crown prince officially. But I wanted to build something real first. To prove I could succeed on my own merit. To find someone who... He trailed off. Who what? Who could stand beside me not because of my crown, but despite it? Elena's heart skipped. Adrian. I'm not proposing, he said quickly, but his eyes were warm. Not yet. But know that when I do officially return to court, I'll want you with me. As my partner in all things. Before Elena could respond, they heard voices approaching. Adrian quickly pulled her behind a hedge, pressing a finger to his lips. The prince can't hide forever, a noble's voice complained. The kingdom needs a proper heir. They say he's been living as a common merchant, another replied. Imagine! A prince doing actual work. Their mocking laughter faded as they passed. Adrian's expression had hardened. This is what I left behind, he said quietly. People who think work is beneath them. Who value birth over character. Then let's prove them wrong, Elena said, taking his hand. Together. ## the warning. As the summer festival approached, Elena received an anonymous letter at her bakery. The handwriting was elegant, but the message was clear. Stay away from Prince Adrian. A baker's daughter has no place in royal life. You will only bring him shame. If you truly care for him, disappear before you ruin his future. Elena showed the letter to Adrian that evening. Ignore it, he said firmly. My mother's advisors probably sent it. They want me to marry some insipid noble who'll be easy to control. But they're right about one thing, Elena said quietly. I would bring you difficulties. Your nobles would never accept me. Let me tell you a secret, Adrian said, cupping her face gently. I don't care what they accept. I care what's right. And you, Elena Morgan, are the rightest thing I've found in years. His words warmed her, but doubt remained. She'd already experienced the cruelty of noble society. Was she strong enough to face it again, this time on an even larger stage? #sabotage. 2 weeks before the festival, disaster struck. Elena arrived at her main shop to find the windows smashed and the interior destroyed. Flour covered everything. Equipment was damaged. Someone had deliberately vandalized her pride and joy. The message painted on the wall was clear. Know your place. Adrian arrived within minutes of receiving her urgent message. His face was dark with fury. This was Lady Victoria's work, Elena said, holding up a distinctive ruby earring she'd found in the debris. She must have heard I'm attending the festival with you. I'll have her arrested, Adrian growled. No, Elena said, surprising herself with her calm. That's what she wants. Drama and attention. Instead, we'll show her that she can't break us. We'll rebuild better than before. Adrian looked at her with pride and love. You've become remarkable, you know that? I had a good teacher. Together, they rallied Elena's staff. Within 3 days, the shop was not just repaired but improved. The vandalism had destroyed old equipment that needed replacing anyway. The new setup was more efficient and beautiful. The day before the festival, the Golden Crumb reopened to a line of customers that stretched around the block. The story of the sabotage had spread, and the capital's citizens had decided to show their support. Standing in her rebuilt shop, surrounded by people who valued her work, Elena realized something important. She'd already won. Not against Lucas or Victoria specifically, but against the entire system that said her birth determined her worth. Tomorrow at the festival, she would simply be celebrating what she'd already achieved. The night before. The evening before the Royal Summer Festival, Elena sat in her room, looking at the magnificent gown hanging on her wardrobe. Green silk that shimmered in the candlelight. A gown fit for a princess. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Adrian entered, looking unusually serious. I need to tell you something else, he said. Tomorrow, I'm officially returning to court. Not as Adrian the merchant. As Crown Prince Adrian. And I'll be announcing my intention to choose a bride within the year. Elena's heart sank. I see. No, you don't. Adrian smiled and knelt before her, taking her hands. Elena Morgan, you've transformed yourself from a hurt village girl into a successful, confident woman. You've built an empire through talent and hard work. You've shown me what real nobility looks like. Adrian, what are you saying? I'm saying that when I announce my intention to choose a bride, I'll be looking directly at you. I'm saying that I've loved you for months but waited until you were ready. Until you saw yourself the way I see you. As someone extraordinary. Tears filled Elena's eyes. I'm still a baker's daughter. And I'm still a man who values character over status. Tomorrow we'll face them together. And if they can't accept you, then they don't deserve either of us. He stood and kissed her forehead gently. Rest well. Tomorrow we show them who you really are. After he left, Elena sat in the darkness for a long time. Tomorrow she would return to the world that had rejected her. But this time she had something she didn't have before. She had herself. Strong, skilled, successful. She had Adrian who loved her for who she was. And she had proof that real worth came from within, not from birth. Tomorrow Lucas would see her. Lady Victoria would see her. All those cruel nobles who'd laughed would see her. And they would understand, finally, what they'd dismissed. Elena smiled in the darkness. The broken girl was gone. The woman who remained was ready for anything. Hashtag Part 3. The Sweet Revenge, 2000 words. Hashtag the festival begins. The Royal Summer Festival transformed the palace grounds into a fairyland. Silk tents in every color lined the gardens. Musicians played from hidden alcoves. Tables overflowed with food and wine. Nobles in their finest clothes gathered like exotic birds, preening and gossiping. Elena arrived in a simple carriage, her magnificent green gown drawing gasps from the crowd at the entrance. But she didn't arrive alone. Prince Adrian, in his full royal regalia, waited at the top of the marble stairs. As Elena ascended, every eye fixed on her. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. Who is she? Is that the baker everyone's talking about? She can't possibly be attending with the prince. Adrian extended his hand with a warm smile. Miss Morgan, you look breathtaking. Your Highness, Elena responded with a perfect curtsy she'd practiced countless times. Together, they entered the festival grounds. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship's bow. Hashtag recognition and shock. Lady Victoria saw them first. She stood near a fountain holding a glass of wine, her arm linked with Lucas's. Her face went pale, then red with fury. That's impossible, she hissed. That's the baker. How dare she appear here with the prince? Lucas turned to look. His wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble path. His face showed complete shock and something else. Recognition slowly dawning. Elena, he whispered. Victoria's head whipped toward him. You know her. But Lucas couldn't look away from Elena. The simple village girl was gone. In her place stood a vision of elegance and grace. But her eyes, her smile, the way she moved. Slowly, impossibly, he realized the truth. Hashtag the royal announcement.